Go on.
Wait a minute, that's not your kitchen, Kevin. That's
Where's
not your kitchen in the United Kingdom. That
Isn't
seems
that
oddly
Kevin
like
Kilbane Towers.
that seems oddly like your apartment in Dublin, Kevin. Did you miss your flight?
No, not at all, Owen. Yeah. Why are you suggesting that?
Oh, sorry, it just looks oddly familiar to the living room that we speak to you when you're speaking to us from Dublin. That's all.
Here,
Right, really.
let's talk football. Let's talk about Wes. So he's announced his retirement. There's been a lot of tributes over the last 24 hours thereabouts. I was looking back at it. I think your career and his overlapped by about 3 years, but it was in that time where he didn't really make an impact. Maybe only got one cap. You might not have seen very much of him around the training ground, I guess.
No, he came in during, I think it was actually when Don Givens was in temporary charge. He came in for the Greece game. I actually wasn't involved in that squad, but he actually did come into a squad that I was involved in a number of years ago as well. So, yeah, we didn't get a chance I didn't get a chance to see him too much in and around the squad. But even watching him from afar, playing against him, chatting to him, you can tell, yeah, he was a very, very talented footballer. I think we all knew that. And probably didn't get as many caps as, or certainly wasn't around the squad as much as he perhaps should have been over the years.
Yeah, so like even on that point and on the great tributes that have come in and the amazing player that he's been that everybody's spoken about over the last 24 hours, like you'd have to ask if people talk about this incredibly talented player who did it on the stage for Ireland, should have got a whole bunch more caps, probably should have played at a higher level, should have played at better clubs for longer. Like, it does leave me with the question if he got the best out of his career.
Well, I think that's probably the overriding question, I think, from his career. I think it's probably fair to ask that one. And, I mean, it'd be interesting to see what he would or how he would answer that question himself if it were put to him. I think the suggestion is, I think he said it himself in various interviews, he probably didn't conduct himself probably great off the pitch. I think when in his younger days, that might have gone against him. It goes to show that I think from Wes retiring, it does go to show me that a career is over with so quickly, and judgments are passed on players so quickly when they're maybe 19, 20, 21, 22, and they're still young men, young lads. And that can maybe carry you through for the rest of your career. And that's maybe one of the reasons why he maybe didn't necessarily go on and maybe play at the top level from when he was a young lad, because I know that the big one over him was, yes, he wasn't tall enough, he wasn't big enough. That was one thing that was put against him. But it's maybe the attitude that maybe he would have taken, maybe the attitude off the pitch. Maybe was that something that went before him when he was a younger man? I don't know. I'm just maybe asking those questions, and it'd be interesting to ask him that question, or if that question was put to him in the coming weeks, I would say.
Is it fair to say his international career was defined by the things he couldn't do rather than the things he could do?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably a great point, actually, isn't it? I think he was overlooked by certain managers because, again, maybe his physical attributes went against him. Certainly, he was maybe looked upon as maybe being a weak link when you didn't have the ball, which I didn't necessarily agree with, because I think when you watch Wes playing, I think he was the one that would always instigate a press in games. He would always close down very, very quickly. It was maybe his positional sense when you didn't have the ball. If you were playing in a functional team like Giovanni Trapattoni's side was, in that sort of functional side, you almost had to hold a position. You didn't necessarily have a leeway to run out of your shape, run off that shape, and then you maybe get yourself caught out quite quickly. If I looked at that functional side, we had very much a 4-4-2 position. Everyone held that position. And if you strayed from that, then you got caught out, and that was why he didn't necessarily get the game time under Trapattoni. So, yeah, I think that's a fair point. I think it is a fair point, Owen, that if he maybe stuck to a position and held a role in a side, I think he maybe would have got more caps.
John O'Shea, Kev, there's a line in the Star this morning, Paul Lennon has it, that it seems as if he's about to retire, and that I think he's saying that Glenn Whelan and John Walters might possibly continue, but that John O'Shea, who turns 37, I think a little bit later in the year, is about to retire. Probably not a great surprise to anybody, really.
No, if that was the case, it certainly wouldn't surprise me. I think John O'Shea's had the questions that I remember. I was getting asked the questions. As soon as you turn about 28 within the Irish setup, people are asking you questions. Are you going to retire? I think John O'Shea's probably had that question levelled at him, maybe 4 or 5 campaigns now. But I mean, John now, you look at certainly the age he's at. the game time he would have got through the last campaign as well. I think that question maybe will be put to him, and we'll see what happens. It wouldn't surprise me. I think he's had an amazing international career, and I think it's probably got to the stage now where he's asking his wife, he's asking his club managers, certainly Chris Coleman and maybe Simon Grayson before him as well. What do you think yourself? And then he can maybe listen to what they all say, take it on board, and then he'll maybe review that going forward.
What's your view on that idea, just on a shape briefly, that the players sort of hanging around to lend a bit of expertise and nous to some of the younger players? Owen was making the point earlier on that he shouldn't, if he's not playing, he shouldn't be in.
Oh no, I don't agree with that whatsoever. I really don't. I look back when I went into the squad, not wanting to put you down here, Owen, at all, but
go for it, Gavin.
When I first got into the squad, I had Tony Cascarino, I had Andy Townsend, I had Ray Houghton. When I first got, and I was in awe of these guys. I mean, these were my heroes growing up. But all of a sudden, I've got these guys around me. Packy Bonner had just become coach. I had Niall Quinn, Roy Keane. I mean, Roy Keane, he's only a few years older than me, but he was still one of the players that I looked up to when I was a kid growing up. And to have these huge heroes of mine in the squad, I was just like, God, this is unbelievable. So there will still be lads within that squad that will be coming in, whether you're 19, 20. And you'll see John O'Shea as this player, this iconic player that they would have loved when they were growing up. So, no, I don't buy that one. Not at all.
I think I was more making the point that shouldn't be his primary function, Kevin. Obviously...
you're attracted to that point after some discussion.
Not really.
Yeah,
that was my initial point. It was just...
You underestimate what they actually bring on the training ground, how their professionalism and what they're doing is influencing the next generation. Of course, John O'Shea wants to play. Primarily, you're right, he wants to play games, but don't overlook that fact of what he's actually bringing to our next generation of international footballers.
Kev, just to move it on a bit, we wanted to talk about an interesting piece that Neil Lennon had, some interesting comments that Neil Lennon had in relation to the Riyad Mahrez situation at Leicester City. Himself, a former Leicester City player, of course, and Riyad Mahrez has missed, I think, 5 training sessions. He's missed 2 games. There's no indication, in fact, he's not going to be in the squad for the game this weekend. And Neil Lennon has shed some light on this entire situation. A guy who's had his battles before as well, very publicly and very well communicated and spoken about as well. But he's talking about Mahrez and the fact that he feels, sources saying that Mahrez may well be very depressed in this entire situation, which is a new wrinkle to the previously sort of one-dimensional conversation about Mahrez obviously trying to force through a move and it not being successful. He throws his toys out of the pram, but that there might be something else at play. I know you're a big fan of the PFA. Is it on them now almost to step in here and take some control of this situation?
Yeah, I mean, however this situation is rectified, whatever is being said maybe internally now to Mahrez, first of all, he needs to get back training. He's got to get back playing. If he's not in the mental state to do that, then the discussions has got to be had on who he's going to see. Certainly from a mental point of view, counselling could be an option for him. I think the suggestion is, I'm sure most people would say, look, he's just got to get on with it. He's been paid X amount of money a week. Don't even worry about it. But there are more complex factors within a sports person's mind, and you know that as well as I do. You lads, you've interviewed enough sportsmen and women. You've interviewed people suggesting otherwise. That look, if things don't necessarily go the way that you envisage in your head, and things don't necessarily go right for you, and that can be problems off the pitch as well as on it. And I think this is a different issue. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, players do suffer mentally, and I've come across it. I've maybe experienced it myself as well in the past, and I know the work that the PFA do to try to help out certain players at different levels. So you only need to look. I mean, if anyone can catch the interview with Billy Key that he did on the BBC over the last few days, he's an Accrington Stanley player. Brilliant interview, and how the anxiety maybe overtook his career. So yeah, there are a number of factors here. I don't know. I don't know Riyad Mahrez whatsoever, but the interview with Neil Lennon in the Star was quite poignant in my mind. Yeah.
Only be as giving as you want to be, but just on your own experience of it, and like the point that you touched on, there is definitely a perception out there. There certainly has been. It's probably been scratched away at over the last few years that, professional sports people, they're earning a lot of money, they have a very privileged lifestyle, and ergo everything should be fine. That's not the way it works.
It's not. It doesn't matter what you're earning. It doesn't matter what your career is or what your profession is. It doesn't matter. certainly mental issues can affect anyone, and it will affect anyone from any walk of life. So I think certainly, I mean, I've spoke to Neil Lennon. Neil Lennon spoke very openly about it as well. I was actually talking to an ex-teammate of mine in the last few weeks regarding this issue. He's come to the end of his playing career. He's had issues. He's spoken to the PFA. The PFA have helped him out as well. And it's, whatever stage of your career you're at as well. Again, Riyad Mahrez is right bang in the middle of his career at the moment, at this moment. But certainly players through the careers are going to have very much an up and down time, certainly from a mental perspective. This is a time when, I say Riyad Mahrez, I mean, again, I don't know, I'm not privy to him. I don't know what conversations have been had with Leicester and Mahrez, with the PFA essentially as well, with his agent. I don't know what conversations have been had, but I think when players are at various stages of their career, they're asking themselves serious questions as to where their life is going. So yeah, certainly it is a tough environment to be part of, definitely.
Are mental health issues, Kevin, stigmatised in the dressing room?
No, certainly not. No, I think they would have been at one stage. I mean, if I look back, I first went into the professional game when I left school at 16. So that was, 93 now. It seems so long ago. But I was on the cusp of two very, very different times within football. I was on the back end of an era when it was literally, lads, just get on with it. Lads were going out 3 and 4 times a week, and many times as well. I would have thought lads were going out maybe just to try and shield something from the mind at times as well. Then I went through to the mid-90s when professionalism was of the utmost. If you were going out, you simply weren't having a career in the game. So that then brought in a different sort of side of it, where you had to maybe think about your thoughts. People then were starting to talk openly about seeing psychologists. People were starting to talk openly about seeing mind coaches and maybe getting counselling for various issues that they were having themselves. So yeah, I'm proud that I was maybe part of that era of football where it was basically, it was probably no holds barred at the time. It was just basically get on with it. But also the fact is that the more mindful player, I think, started to come in. I think the more mindful person, and I think coaching changed around that time, around how to deal with players that were having various mental issues. So yeah, again, maybe different eras, but of course, I think in general, I think the game has certainly changed now.
Yeah, interesting piece as well on the BBC website. Definitely worth checking out with the Accrington Stanley striker Billy Key this week. That's definitely worth checking out in that context as well. Kev, I want to talk to you a little bit about the football, the North London derby, of course. And I think the main thing that kind of struck out for me, there's some good quotes from Arsene Wenger about English being expert in divers, which I definitely sort of tickled me a little bit this morning. But outside of that, before we get into it, there's been a lot of sort of lauding of what Pochettino has done and what Spurs have done, the style of play that they have, and on the flip side, a lot of berating of Arsenal for the exact opposite of that. But for all of that, and I know they don't have a good recent record against them, but for all of that, if Arsenal do manage to get the win at the weekend, they'll only be a point behind Spurs. Yeah,
exactly. That's the thing. And it has got to this stage, certainly a number of years ago, it got to this stage where Arsenal were a little bit behind, and now all of a sudden they start to gain momentum going into this North London derby. They're on a roll. They've certainly at home they're playing very well. It's away from home that's been costing Arsenal this season, I suppose. It's an interesting one. It really is, I think, because you say that 4-point gap. If they were to win at Arsenal, all of a sudden it puts Tottenham under massive pressure. So I think in general, I think we're looking at this game potentially being one of the biggest games this season. I think certainly when you're looking at Champions League places and what's at stake, and given the fact is that over the years Arsene Wenger has prided himself on Champions League finishes. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this game. I think it'll be a cracker this Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, it'll be great as well just for the neutral, because the title race is over. The relegation battle is already shaping up to something great, and now the top four race could, as you say, if Arsenal win, shape up to something brilliant as well. Just another point on that in terms of Arsenal. Like, I think the reason why they descended from title challengers to top four contenders was because of the defence, and they've now gone from top four challengers to top six challengers because their attack was letting them down. But you look at Aubameyang, and the first thing I'd noticed when I just saw him was just the sheer pace that he's got. That breakaway goal they scored against Everton last weekend, and that speed and attack. I know Amy Lawrence has written extensively about it last weekend, just about that added pace and how important that was to the Invincibles team. And finding that added speed and attack is going to be so important for Arsenal to start climbing that ladder again and getting back to being a regular in the top 4.
Yeah, I've not read that. It's actually nice that you've noticed something that happens on the pitch rather than reading the stats sometimes. So. I think Aubameyang will make a huge difference to Arsenal. I think he will. I'd certainly question the judgment of signing Lacazette last summer if Aubameyang. Sometimes a player comes up late notice and you have to make that signing, but it's almost as if that money's just been frittered away on Lacazette now, because I just can't see him getting any game time given the way that Arsenal actually do play and the system that they do set up. But I'm interested to see Arsenal long term. I do. I think we're all admirers of how they do play. I'd question Arsenal's discipline over the years. I certainly would question it under Wenger. That's the one thing. I'd question the professionalism on a lot of those players as well that have played for Arsenal over the years. But you always get to this stage where Arsenal, there's two signings gone in there, and you're thinking, yeah, they've got a chance now over the next year. Can they now maintain something? Can they get 2 or 3 more signings in? Can they make themselves solid in midfield? Can they solidify defensively? Because if they do it, Arsenal have got the players to go on and seriously challenge. But I don't know. It's the question marks, and again, I go back to the point: professionalism and the attitude of a lot of those players. And I just don't see a sustained challenge coming in at Arsenal over the next few years. I just don't see it.
Aubameyang is an interesting angle that Owen brings up there. He's 4 from 4 games against Spurs, which is an interesting enough stat, obviously, from his time at Borussia Dortmund. I was reading that it compares better than the likes of Henry and RVP. Pretty small sample size now, to be fair. But, I mean, is there something in that? You know, he's got good record against Tottenham. It's different systems and it's all of that stuff. But actually, from a confidence point of view, it's pretty good position for him to be in.
Yeah, well, you'd know. My goal scoring record age, and I didn't necessarily have any sort of purple patches against any team, so I can't really disclose that. But having spoken to a lot of strikers that would have, they'd have certain records against certain teams, and it happens all of a sudden. It's just they're out against a certain side, and they just feel good in that particular game, and they'll end up excelling and scoring. So I think it does make a difference. I think Aubameyang will fancy it this weekend, given the fact is that yes, he is starting for his new club. It is the huge game, the big derby for them, so he'll be up for it in that respect. But he'll fancy it given his goal scoring record against Spurs and Tottenham themselves. They haven't necessarily across over the last few years been great at Wembley. Arsenal's record at Wembley has actually been brilliant over the last few years, and that's the one thing you maybe can't overlook, that a lot of those players have got experience of going to Wembley, of getting big results in big games. So that's another thing that maybe leads you towards Arsenal. I mean, there's been a lot of suggestion over the last week or so that I'm actually anti-Spurs, which clearly I'm not. I don't know where the hell this suggestion has come from. I love Spurs. It's a great club, Spurs. But I don't know. I'm just looking forward to this game. I think there's many things within this game I think I'm looking forward to seeing. I just something in me that actually fancies Arsenal to get something out of it. I'm not saying they're going to go and win the game, but I don't know. I just think they've got certain personnel within that side that can hurt Spurs. I think getting Toby Alderweireld back for Tottenham, I think that's a massive thing. I probably expect him to start this weekend, and I think given that Tottenham will have a full strength side out, resting Ali, Eriksen, and Kane midweek, I think that's another thing that's within this game that'll help Spurs. But I just don't know. I just see Arsenal getting something from this game. Yeah.
Are English players, as Arsene Wenger puts it, the masters of diving now, or is this just a little bit of needle ahead of the game at the weekend?
Well, you're seeing it more and more. It's certainly come into the English game over the last 20 years. 20 years ago, I suppose, you were seeing those great Arsenal sides, and you were seeing Robert Perez that was bringing a bit of diving into the game. You were seeing him going down expertly. You're seeing English players now, British players in general. They're following that same sort of mould that, any sort of contact, or not even contact at times, is kind of trying to ride tackles, kicking the leg into an opponent like Perez used to do, kicking the leg into the floor and going over. So, you know what? I think the substance of that argument, I think there is from Wenger.
Is Dele Alli the chief culprit when it comes to diving?
No, definitely. He is. He does have to be careful, Dele Alli. He's been scrutinised for for many things off and on the pitch in recent weeks. But I think in general, I think Ali is a major culprit of it. But again, it's not just Ali. You see many British players now over the last few years that any sort of contacts are going over.
Couple of things before we leave you, Kev. You're on your tour. You're on your tour. Your travels again this weekend.
Yes, I am at Man City Leicester tomorrow. Yes, so and then I'm heading over to Galway on Sunday for the Galway Mayo game. Yeah,
it was more that really that I was talking about. You've been a busy man. I don't know if you can see that on your screen.
No, I can't see anything on my screen.
So what we have here is a picture of you. I mean, this is Clonus, right? This is off the ball Shane Hannon, who's tweeted a picture of the Anglo-Celt, I think, Owen, is it? The Northern Standard, I've been told. So this is the picture of you, Kev, which I'm sure you're aware of. The entire rest of the fans in your friends around you there in the stand at St Turnix Park looking at the game, and you staring at the camera. Did you spend all your time looking at the camera, or did you watch any of the game?
I'm not actually staring at the camera. If anyone would notice it properly, everyone's looking in the same direction as me, actually, Adrian. So
no, your friends around you are all looking at the game, Kev.
Yeah, exactly what I'm doing. So yeah, I didn't notice any camera actually, Adrian. Again, if you study it properly, you'll probably see that everyone's looking in the same direction, as I said before. But
I'm on Kev's side on this one.
Yeah, sometimes, Adrian, you see what you want to see.
All the time, Kev. That's absolutely all the time.
Yeah.
So listen,
we actually, can we just say we had this conversation last night? And did you bet me €20 that everyone wasn't looking in my direction?
No, I did not bet you €20.
Yeah, I think you did, Adrian. I think
€5, Kev, and I'm sticking by my guns as well. By the way,
was it €5? So you owe me €5, yeah.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, it looks like the night that you had. That's. I'm not surprised that you can't remember that. Here, listen. I've been looking up. I've been on airlingus.com. Right. There's a flight at 10 a.m. and there's a flight then at 12:15.
Yeah, I'll probably miss it. I'll miss the 10 a.m. flight, so I'll have to try to speak to my friends at Aer Lingus. And
your friends at Aer Lingus, have you?
No, I'll go and speak to them. I'll go
friends
speak
everywhere,
nicely.
Kev, you have.
Is that right?
Yeah. That's the 6:40. Right? There we are. So flight at 10 o'clock. That can get you in at 11:10. It's going to set you back €103. You can leave then at 12:15 if you want.
There's only one seat left in that 10 o'clock.
Only one seat left there at that price, though.
Oh no, he'll go for the 3:11.
113 quid. I'm presuming you'll be away at 12:15, will you?
Probably. This time now, it's what is it? 9:10. I'll never make that 10 o'clock one now. So I'm going to have to. I'll get myself up and get myself ready to go. 12:15 it is, I think.
Kev, you're a beauty. Thanks for taking the call.
Good man. Take it easy.
Good man. Take it easy. Kevin Kilbane there, live from his sitting room and not his kitchen in Manchester, as we had kind of expected before we chatted to him.